Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about releasing the fear you have usually made decisions upon. What does that mean? You see, when we plan anything actually, we plan this based on what we know. Now, if one of your bases are planted in fear, and believe me, many of us have. An example is, I need this and this job to have the lifestyle that I wish for, or if I'm not having this partner or this environment, I'm going to lose it all. You see, these are just very, very basic examples, but it's about having something in the basement, right? Where we are not quite aware that we are actually dealing or managing our whole life up on that structure. Now, if our structure is full of fear, we are operating not in our highest good, because we are operating from a level that can never really go where your true self could go, or where your whole being could possibly move towards to, because you are moving from a very, very low kind of possibility of life, right? You're not operating where you're choosing really freely. You're choosing something because you're trying to, let's say, survive. You're trying to establish, or I would say hold the life that you have. But you're not aware that there could be something more beautiful, that you could do something that is actually in a higher possibility for you, right? Because you're working on yourself the same way that you have done yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. So this is not about guilting or shaming you. This is about, we need to bring in awareness to where we are going. And if we don't want to have that, if we don't want to keep following those structures, right? And maybe you're not even aware of that. Like, I wasn't aware my whole 20s, I wasn't aware that I built my life up on fear. I was having fear around me all the time, believing I'm going to lose it all, believing I need to sustain something that was actually not really good for me, right? Just thinking that I need that in place. I still needed to be in my life, but actually it was more harming me, right? I wasn't really aware what it feels like if I'm not dealing with so much fear in my field, right? What would I choose for myself if I would choose more freely? Maybe this is a very, very good question for you to start with, right? How would you live your life if you wouldn't be constantly afraid of your decisions, of the outcomes, right? How would you live your life if the outcome is not really something that you can control anyways? The way how we got raised is very different, right? Maybe you have come or have learned the same term. For me, it was something along this lines. The work you're putting into, and we're in the doing phase here. If you do more, you get more, right? If you are not getting it, you're doing something wrong. If you're doing so much hard work as you're saying you do, and you're not getting where you're supposed to, you're doing it clearly wrong. So it's basically your fault. I was living with that statement for so many years until I recognized, hey, actually, that's not really the truth. And it was never where I was meant to go. And you go and feel for you. You see, this is a teaching that is very different to what you may have experienced previous. And by the way, if you're meeting the first time, I'm not always doing this because I'm already so long at this channel. My name is Patricia, and I'm super happy to have you. If you want to know anything more about me, then please check out the subscription or my website, or yeah, I think there you find everything you want to read about me or find or see. With that said, let's actually tap into this video more fully. What we are going to do today is truly about recognizing when fear is our base, the fear of how we choose something. I choose a new job because it gives me this and this and this, but I'm not choosing it because it's on my path or it's in my highest path. I'm choosing it because it looks good on paper, because it's, I don't know, my parents recognize it. I'm acknowledged for this. The problem is that once you have it, you are not satisfied. You see, this is actually what fear does, right? It's not really here to really give you this love that you seek. You see, fear is just replicating itself. Maybe you have noticed this again or by yourself too, as the more fear you are having, and maybe you don't even know you have this in your system, okay? I never really knew that I had this in my system, so maybe you don't either. When you don't know, then you may understand now after this episode that you may have this in your field too. And by saying that, you can change that. So not to worry too much, but the awareness needs to be here. When we are having this fear in our field, we are choosing very interestingly, right? The way how we choose, I actually have to move a little bit back. Oh, this is way better. The way how we choose is different if we choose in alignment with who we truly are, you see. And how do you know if you're choosing from who you are or if you're choosing from a place of fear? I guess you start to recognize when you are choosing from love, you start to not only care for the outcome that much, but you are actually fulfilled by making that decision. It's like your heart opens up. You feel the love is already here, regardless of what is coming. It is a different experience. See, these teachings, especially on my YouTube channel, they're very experimental. So this means that you experience those transmissions, those activations very, very on a phase where you need to experience for yourself what it does, right? Because it's all the time in your highest good. So the teachings here are very different to maybe other episodes where, or other teachers where it's rather about the doing phase, right? You're doing way more. I believe doing less, not in a way of not actually being present in this world and being active and outside. I believe doing more internal work to understand where you are in this present moment. Where are you present? Is your presence really a lot in fear? Is it a lot in trauma? Is it a lot in past experiences? Is it a lot in grief, in sadness, in anger, in frustration? If so, you may want to release that, you see. You may want to allow yourself to feel more free. Feeling more free, being more present in yourself. You see, you're not your trauma, you're not fear, you're not any kind of emotion at all. But the question is, do you identify with it? And probably you do. You see, when we have experiences like this, we identify our persona to it. We feel that this is who we are because we experienced it, right? And see, it's not your fault that you believe that's true. This is actually what we got taught all along. I think it's the time has come where we need to recognize that some of those teachings may have been good in the past, may not anymore. You know, teachings where you're not feeling uplifted, teachings where you may feel you're kind of in a rut, like doing the same things over and over again. I remember when I started this work about 10 years ago, and I wasn't really doing anything public. I wasn't a coach itself. I learned that that those personal development books were they actually were very unhelpful at one moment. I was like, okay, this is all about I need to do more, I need to do better, I need to be more in blah, 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 I need more structures, I need more this or that. And while that has all its value, I believe that there is so much more to that, you see. There is so much more. So if you're doing so much, but you're so afraid all the time, all day long, because you're losing something that you know, because you are feeling that you're feeling the lack, right? The lack of something. And if you're constantly creating up on that, you're never getting anywhere. You're just making the loop all over again. So these self-development books never really helped me because the teachings were not really deep. They were really on the surface level, you know. When you start to look into corporations, and then they're very proud that they finally start to work on personal development, and then you hear all of that, and I'm just like, yeah, I've been there, and I knew in the beginning I thought it was great, and then at one point I started to realize, well, I'm not really getting anywhere. It was good in the beginning, but then I saw it was stopping me because I couldn't see the results I was looking for. I couldn't feel what I was looking for. And I still felt ashamed and so much guilt of not reaching that goal, right? Not being there. And I feel a lot of it these days is about calming our system, our nervous system, because we are too overloaded with too much stuff. We don't really know who we are. So we are creating from a very weird place. We are creating from a fear place. And this fear, this base, is sitting very, very deep, right? When you look at the teachings from our schools, for example, a lot of these teachings are based in fear. There are so many of them are based in fear. If you're not getting this or that, you are not going to make it in this world. If blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, if this is in your field, what you are going to attract in the outside world is exactly the same. You see, but if that would be true, if that would be really true, then when you see other people who may have had another experience, right? They may have gone through the same school system than you, or the same kind of trauma than you. Not exactly the same, but the outcome was different. So how is it possible that they chose, I don't know, in your eyes, a successful way, right? This means that the way how we see our reality is a very, very personal, right? It's very personal. And I don't mean to point any fingers at you. I mean that if we see that in a personal way, we could as well choose differently, right? We could choose to make our life better. And I don't mean better in a sense of I'm looking down at other people and how miserable they are doing over there. No, not at all. Not at all. You see, those teachings are not about better, or you're right, I'm wrong, or the other way around, black and white. These teachings are very much more about, hey, let's go into the grayscale. Let's go into, this is your reality you're facing, and I can very much understand where you are heading to. I can see how much pain you must have gone through. I can see how much suffering that may have cost you. You see? This doesn't mean you have to stay there. This means that you could actually remove the suffering from you by choosing clearly. But of course, it's a practice. So when we start to realign to who we are, to our essence, to the extension of source, right? We need to understand as well that we are not separate from source itself. We are not separate from God or source, universe, whatever name you want to call it. This is not a religious teaching. This is just a universal understanding of, I'm not separate from the cat who is lying on the floor. I'm not separate from, this plant here in the back. We are all together in this boat. We are all together in this world, in this planet, right? We are all together here, and we can all feel when someone feels off. We can feel when someone is sad or happy. We can feel it without the person telling us, hey, this is it. But unfortunately, we have lost those kind of senses to understand the signals, right? There are very different signals. So the signal that we understand is, hey, if I'm not talking directly to you, then I'm not getting it. And even then, I may not get it. I may not understand, right? I may not see you for who you are. But we lost the connection to that. And therefore, we feel separate from everything, and we feel separate from even ourselves. How many people feel separate from their true self because they don't know who they are, right? They're living a kind of a mask, and I ask you, take it off. One by one, take it off. Try to be as true as possible to yourself, because that is actually going to be a ripple effect for everyone else. And you're going to see that the fear that you were holding on to so tightly wasn't doing you any favor, but the fear was here to help you survive, right? But you're not surviving anymore, right? If you choose to not survive anymore, right? Always trying to put your head up so that you are not underwater, you're not there anymore. You're out of the water already, right? If you choose to, you're out of the water already. And then you have to start to recognize, okay, I cannot do the same things that brought me into the water, right? I cannot make those decisions that brought me there. But I'm also not avoiding to see at the water to see what was in there, right? For example, choosing the same friendships over and over again, right? Those people who may have been helpful to stay in survival mode, right? Where you're sitting in a circle, for example, and you're, I don't know, kind of gossiping about other people on how bad they are doing, or what is in their life all crappy, right? Like speaking about third persons, or doing all those things that are not really uplifting you. You start to recognize those patterns that you have done over time all the way, right? And looking at those patterns, and don't shaming yourself for doing it, but seeing it as, okay, I have done that. Wasn't the best choice. Now let's move on. Let me give myself the peace to move on, because I've suffered enough. I suffered enough to be in a place I don't want to be. You don't have to be. You don't have to be in that place. You don't have to go there again. But you see, this is a training that you have, or a practice that you have to learn over time. Over time, this will change. If you start to see life is going to be different, and I mean different because you're choosing different, because you choose that when you feel heavy, you choose to look into the water and see, okay, what is there? I'm not going to make a decision now because I'm not feeling free. I'm only making a decision when I feel free, when I feel it's silent, right? My emotions are in a silent move. So the water is like this, right? And not like, then I'm not going to make any decisions, because I know it's not the right moment to make life-changing decisions, because I may operate from a system I don't want to. And because of knowing that, you're releasing fear every single time you're making a new choice. You start to see, okay, the more I release, the more I choose new. And you see, you can choose new every single day. And choosing from a heart perspective, choosing from a place where, okay, I want to have a wealthy life. I want to be free. I want to be happy. I want to be healthy. I want to have success, right? But I want to have all of that based on my true self, based on my true nature, based on who I am from deep within. Not because someone else is telling me who I am. I don't want to make any jobs anymore that are not in alignment with myself. I don't want to do those relationships that are not really here for me either. I'm not doing myself a favor, but I'm also not doing someone else a favor, because we are just repeating the past over and over again. I want to make a new decision, right? So this is what you can do to yourself. How do you want to move through life? And start to see where you are placing fear. Because fear is really an emotion that is so deep in our society. It's so deep in the collective, where you can almost touch it. It's so consistent everywhere. I can feel it everywhere. So feel when you are feeling it, and don't be afraid of feeling that. You need to understand that your body is actually really alchemizing those emotions, is really actually purging your emotions. It's actually giving it back to source. As soon as you're feeling it, you're allowing yourself to feel, you start to make this move up, 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 and you start to release. It's really a process, right? And when you start to do this every single day, start to feel into, how am I feeling today? Is there any fear? Is there any heavy emotions? Let me feel what I feel when I feel it, so I can actually allow myself to alchemize it, to release it to the world, right? In a good way, right? Not in a not to throw up on people or something like that, but to recalibrate, right? Recalibrate your system, and start to recognize that when you act in fear, you are not doing yourself or others a favor, because you are repeating yourself from something you don't want anymore. It's a very different practice, right? When we start to recognize, okay, let's work from intuition, right? Well, how do you want to work from intuition if you have no clue? Then you are like, okay, I'm going after my feelings, right? The way how I feel right now, this is what I would choose. The problem is that oftentimes when you're not feeling really stable and not really grounded, then your decisions are not really rooted in truth, in your truth, right? They are rooted in the reality you already live in. You understand that? So if you're choosing to stay in that reality because you are choosing from a place where you are like in emotional highs, right? You may repeat until you see, okay, that's maybe not the path I want to go further, right? You will repeat over and over again because that's your frequency, that's your vibration, that's where you're operating from. The more you're calming down your system, the more you're choosing from a calm place, a grounded place, a place where you're not in fear, where you're not in constant horror, right, in terror, you are operating from a very different place. And this may be very hard for you to understand right now because you're feeling so dense emotions all the time. Believe me, I have been there. I know exactly how it feels like. But I tell you here and now, it works. I have done it for years and it actually really works. I have never been better in my whole life. And it's not because I was at so many doctors or whatsoever. It's because I did this inner work. It's because I went doing the inner work. It's because I went to search for who I am. It's because of that that I actually claimed my own true self, that I start to recognize, okay, this is what I want to do in this life. This is how I want to serve. This is how I want to live. And is everything flower power? Not at all. But the way how I look at it is so different. It's I can look at it from a distance. I can look at things. I can see the anger. I can see how people are afraid. But I'm not attaching myself. You see, many people, when they have a lot of empathy, they immediately, so if here is the person, they immediately run into their field. And I'm like, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is stand strong together like this and see what they're doing. And if they do need your help, if they do want your support, you may take them by the hand, but then you are doing like this, right? You're not entering their field, but you're showing them that there is another way of calming their truth. This is very different than, hey, I'm entering your field, you're feeling bad, so I feel bad, so we are together feeling bad. What is that all about? This is not really what empathy is or what an empath could do possibly, right? So feeling how other people feel, that's awesome. This is a great tool. Doesn't mean you need to feel bad for them because they're not in the place they want to be or could be or whatsoever. This is about an opportunity, seeing opportunities, seeing that someone could actually potentially need your help, need your support if they want to, right? So you may ask the question, hey, do you want to try out something? Do you want to blah? You could then send them something. You could send them a book. I don't know, this episode. You could refer something, right? You could just listen to them in silence. Don't give them any advice in that sense, because if they're finding themselves, let them find themselves. You don't need to enter that path because you are not in that capacity to do so. No one is. It's on you to find your own path. It's on you to do your way. It's on you to do your own signature, your blueprint is only for you and no one else will be able to see that clearly and fully, right? So by the way, if you're looking for one-on-one teachings, then head over to my website. There is another thing I want to announce, that is the monthly coaching that will be available very, very soon. I think by mid of Feb we start. So yeah, if you want to be in the loop for that, then head over to the waiting list, because there I will announce this first. And so yeah, with that said, thanks so much for being here. Like, share, and comment if you got something out of this video. This is totally up to you if you want to do this, of course. And with that said, have a wonderful day.